good evening to the hopeless romantics and the quiet observers of connection that refuses to be rushed. Welcome back to Turkish Series Stars, the corner of the internet where we lean in, listen carefully, and let the heart of the story guide us. Tonight, we're not chasing noise for clicks or stirring a storm where there is none. We are tuning into a steady rhythm that has grown stronger, closer, and harder to dismiss. We're speaking about Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu. And the softly traded words that suggest the line between colleagues and something far more permanent may be dissolving at last. Before we step into this glow, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Series Stars. Tap like if you believe in timing as a love language, and if our warm, independent storytelling speaks to you, hit the join button to support the channel. Your kindness keeps the lights on and the stories coming. Now, let's enter the truth that Barış can no longer tuck away. In the discreet hallways of the Turkish entertainment world, where privacy is armor and silence is strategy, a new hum has begun. It circles around the way Barış has been talking about Elçin behind the scenes. Not PR lines. Not polished anecdotes. But words with heat and clarity, words that friends tried to keep, then couldn't, because feelings like these don't stay caged for long. It began the way it so often does on set. Laughter drifting across a makeup trailer, memories of late nights, jokes traded over cooling coffee. Then, with that grounded voice that never needs to rise to command attention, Barış reportedly let a truth slip that has the fandom holding its breath. A future with Elçin doesn't feel far anymore. It feels within reach. We remember how this thread was first spun. A series brought them face to face, drawing them together in the bright glare of studio lights. At first it belonged to their characters, scripted glances, mapped emotions, the choreography of a love story made for television. But even when the cameras cut, something lingered. A timing that didn't need cues. A kindness that didn't need instruction. Anyone who paid attention could see the shift, a seamless professional spark slowly deepening into something that didn't need naming to be understood. They remained laser-focused on the work. Their interviews were careful, respectful, elegant. But hearts have a way of speaking through gestures long before words catch up, and time has a habit of revealing what was never performative. Now, after months of keeping the most precious parts of their lives tucked safely out of reach, the air around them seems unmistakably different. According to those allowed close enough to witness the quiet moments, Barış isn't sidestepping questions about long-term plans with a charming smile anymore. He has begun to speak with a new steadiness, a new intent, so clear that even friends who have known him forever mark the change. He has been heard calling Elçin more than a co-star, more than a confidant, more than a dazzling chapter in a long career. He calls her the anchor of his days. And when the room grows calm and trust unspools, he is said to admit that the idea of a home with her no longer looks like a distant horizon, it feels like a sentence finally finding its period. The outside world, of course, does what it always does, it watches from the edges, it asks, it stitches theories from fragments. Fans have noticed how carefully they protect the space that belongs only to them. They travel when the calendar allows, they vanish when needed, and they return just long enough to remind everyone why their presence together feels singular. Whispers speak of sunsets shared off the grid, quick escapes where they can breathe in peace. And when the camera is tucked away and the makeup fades, the rumor is that they remain the calm at each other's dusk. What sets these murmurs apart is simple. For a long time, Barış was the one who avoided the marriage question with grace, not because he was scared of love. How could a man who brings such lived-in truth to the screen be afraid of feeling, but because he respects the tempo of life. He respects the responsibility of craft, the patience required to build something that endures. He has always been careful with promises and vigilant with timing, protective of the people who matter. So when he starts talking about a shared life as something close enough to touch, his seriousness rings like bells in winter air. This isn't showmanship. It's a man who has quietly weighed the moment and decided it's worth everything. And then there is Elçin, composed, deliberate, always measured about the corners of her heart she lets the public see. She isn't one for spectacle or sudden declarations. She lets the work speak loudly and the feelings live softly. But the way her smile breaks slightly when his name enters a conversation, the gentleness in her eyes when asked about him, those small truths compose a language of their own. People near her say she doesn't treat this bond like a chapter to skim and discard, she holds it like a novel she plans to finish. This is a journey she wants to protect, a future she's willing to shape with patience and choice. If the rumors hold water, the families have stepped into the frame, not with blaring trumpets but with warm, ordinary rituals, living rooms, garden breezes, tea poured into waiting cups, the kind of shared laughter that ripples only when the right people are gathered around the same table. The word is that comfort sits on both sides. Recognition, too. As if everyone quietly realized that this, at last, is the fit that makes sense. No official moves, not yet. But often the loveliest part of any beginning happens before anything is signed. A home is imagined, a circle widens, a path is swept clear. Trace the line back to where it started, two professionals meeting as equals, building trust that sprouted on the page and slowly took root off screen. Neither of them needed the other to shine, they are stars without comparison. But side by side, a brightness bloomed that no one could ignore. People speak of chemistry as if it's a camera trick. Yet what has never dimmed between them is the underlying goodness, the steady respect, the way they show up for each other's craft without ever trying to outglow it. There is comfort in seeing two people lift each other up. There is hope in watching them choose grace in an industry that celebrates noise. Now, the phrases that weave through their private conversations carry new weight. It's said that when Barış speaks about the months to come, he doesn't sound like a man guessing. He sounds like someone who has learned the shape of the future in his palm and trusts himself not to drop it. He can be poetic in the unguarded way honest men are when they confess what matters. He says life is settling. He says the road feels clearer with her steps matching his. He says the house lights can dim, the crowd can recede, and he will still be there, sure of the hand he wants to hold. Those who decode gestures have had a feast. They watch schedules align without fanfare. They notice pauses that shadow the ends of demanding shoots. They clock the glints, a photo from the same city taken hours apart, a hush shared on a flight, moods that rhyme months later. No grand displays. No extravagant pronouncements. Only a handful of small, human moments that, together, become a tapestry. Critics have tried to complicate it. They ask if it's too soon, if audiences are expecting too much, if eyes upon them might plant hesitation. But sources close enough to understand insist there is no rush, only readiness. That both of them are choosing intention over impulse, depth over drama. That the aim isn't to shock the world, but to honor a love carefully sheltered from the wind. We should pause to honor how rare this dynamic is. In a field famous for fast sparks and louder endings, Barış and Elçin seem committed to the long arc. What do you think? Is silence a shield that helps love last? Is privacy the quiet magic at the heart of something real? Tell us in the comments, and remember, the join button is the most generous way to fuel Turkish series stars so we can keep bringing you these deep dives. When people recall the first whispers about them, they describe the calm. There were no reckless plunges into scandal. No tangled messes. Just patience. Time. And when the energy shifted, when the private language grew more assured, it didn't land like a plot twist. It felt like a page turning right on time. Word is that their teams are supportive, that in production meetings and script talks and long set days, a space exists where their personal rhythm can breathe without interference. Their devotion to craft hasn't wavered. If anything, finding tenderness has made their focus sharper. Excellence hasn't been traded for romance. If the rumors are true, excellence has been nourished by it. That's why people believe. That's why the notion of a formal promise doesn't sound like gossip, but like the culmination of something carefully built. And what of the phrases that set this wave in motion? The sentences that traveled softly from trusted friend to trusted friend until the story reached the rest of us. They aren't reckless vows. They aren't fireworks. They are the measured truths of a man who has spent his career avoiding grandstanding. If he's speaking about marriage not as a headline but as something near, then perhaps the horizon is closer than it looks. As for Elçin, her subtlety remains its own kind of poetry. She doesn't need to confirm what her actions already suggest. Those who know her say she thinks about timing, guards what's quiet, understands how easily small joys can be shaken by the outside world. And yet the joy glows, through laughter in the darkest hours of a shoot, through words of public support offered without fanfare, through a presence that quietly says, I'm here. Still here. Always here. Where does that leave us tonight? With a story that has been forming in soft shadows stepping gently into light. With families who may already be exchanging knowing looks. With friends who have watched two people deepen a companionship into something sturdy. With fans who don't cheer because a headline told them to, but because the details hum the same note. This isn't a breeze, this is steady weather. People say a promise is on its way. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not with confetti. Maybe it arrives as everything else about them has arrived. Inside a small room, with eyes that have already agreed, with hands that already know the shape of home. And when that moment comes, whether shared with the world or sealed in a tight circle of loved ones, it will feel less like shock and more like recognition. Of course, we'll say. Of course it's time. Of course they chose each other. Until then, we'll watch the story continue to write itself in glances and grace, in aligned schedules and unwavering respect. We'll remember the beginning, the patient middle, the breath it learned to take. And we'll hold close the words that stirred this new tide. The future isn't a far shore. It's just across the water, calling them by name. Thank you for joining us for this special report on Turkish series stars. If this portrait of quiet commitment stirred you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And for those who want to walk beside us as we tell the stories that matter, the join button is waiting. Until next time, trust the silence. Trust the journey. Good night.